Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful tasting with a virtual tasting society. Today, I'm excited to welcome one of our own. Anna Hinz is here to introduce us to a brand that she works for, a brand that we love and have tasted in the past. And we're excited to welcome Shane Armstrong, who is the master blender. Congratulations on the position. I hear you've been there a long time. We're excited to hear about your role with the company and what you've done over the years. But yeah, welcome everyone. Today we're tasting six expressions from Westland, and I don't think we've tasted any of these before, other than the flagship, of course. So Anna, thank you so much for putting together this amazing lineup for us, including two barrel samples of barley varietals. I know you
Yeah,
and I have
that's right.
talked about
Those
this.
are yeah, those are pretty special ones you can't get. So
So thank you so much. I know Anna and I have talked about you guys being on the forefront of barley varietals and just single grains and just super exciting stuff. And yeah, you guys came through as always. So thank you so much. We're excited to have you. Thank you for joining us. Introduce yourselves. Tell us about yourselves and the brand and so on and so forth.
yeah, I guess I'll start. So the brand Westland as a distillery was originally founded in 2010. Started distilling in 2011. Then a very pivotal moment happened where I joined in 2012. So there was only about four or so employees working at the time. We had just filled around cask 200, or we had 200 or so casks in stock. For reference, now we have over 9,000 filled. So that includes like over this past whatever 14 years of, or we started releasing whiskey in 2013. So since then, all the casks we've emptied, put into that, we've built up our stock to 9,000. Pretty proud moment. Yeah, so I started basically just working all the production jobs. So I was full-time distilling for years, full-time mashing, did some QA on the production side, and then I took over blending in 2016. So in this tasting, we'll be tasting Garryana 10. My first project as a solo blender was in 2016, was blending Garryana 1, the very first one. So that was exciting, and been doing it ever since.
Yeah, I'm Anna. Hi, friends. Yeah, I mean, most of you know my story. Been here for 3 years. Been pretty great. Was a Westland fan since 2015. So thanks for blending some really great stuff. I've been enjoying it for a very long time, but I'm the business development manager and handle project management, export markets, and working with our beautiful independent bottlers. So yeah, thanks for coming, guys.
Yes, yeah, as far as Weston, I'm sure Tyler covered this for those who years ago had Tyler's hot steep presentation as well as some whiskeys. So Westland at a base level, we're in Seattle, Washington. We're trying to express this region that we're in. This region where we are grows a lot of barley, doesn't grow that much corn. There's also a lot of breweries here, so we're influenced both indirectly in that the malts that we use to make our distillate, and also directly, which we'll taste in a bit in our beer cask finish, loaning those casks out. We also try to use barley that's grown fairly close. Some is incredibly close in the Skagit Valley. Some is farther away in eastern Washington. We also use a local species of oak, Quercus Garryana, which we'll taste in our third sample today, I think. Yeah, fourth sample. Ooh. Fourth sample today, we'll taste the Garryana 10, which is a big moment for us to have a 10-year age statement. That's the basics. So let's dive in. I don't want to talk too much. We should taste some whiskey.
So we have the flagship, the beer cask, the wine cask, the Garryana, and the two samples. Is that the order we should go in, essentially?
I actually just wondering about that.
Yeah, flagship, beer, wine, Gary. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah, possibly. We might need to get a bottle of Gary 10, but I'll start with the flagship.
Since we're on the flagship, can you tell us how it's evolved over the years? Because what we're tasting now is not what we would have tasted 10 years ago.
No, absolutely not. So the flagship as a product didn't exist 10 years ago. It's only been out for probably a few years in this iteration. For those of you who are familiar with Westland in the past, we had three main whiskeys. It was called American Oak, Sherrywood, and Peated. American Oak was defined by using these malts that are roasted and kilned to different levels, aged in new oak. Sherrywood defined by obviously sherry cask, both PX and Oloroso, and our peated had some Scottish peat in it. So in some ways, this one is a combination of all those three. So the backbone of this is our 5 malt mash bill. So this uses these different barleys that are kilned and roasted to different levels to build up this big, robust flavor profile. We also use a Belgian Saison brewer's yeast. So that kind of continues to build the profile. And most of that is aged in new oak. So that makes up over 60% of this vatting. The rest of it is some spirit that's aged in Oloroso casks, both hogsheads and butts. People feel free to ask questions too if you don't know what these things are. A butt is a large vessel. It's about 132 gallons. A hogshead is one of those casks cut down to a smaller size, about 66 gallons. So this has some of that Oloroso sherry in it. It also has a little bit of peated spirit and also some of our pale malt aged in ex-bourbon casks. So you'll notice straight away, you get hit pretty quickly with what we always said, some kind of red fruit, some kind of cherry in form, any form that you want it to be, whether it's fresh, whether it's cooked. And so this note is developed largely during fermentation, when the esters develop and continue to develop in the cask. Then it transitions to the really malty notes I was talking about, which obviously are driven by the malt. And then towards the end, and when you get it on the palate, you get those darker chocolate, those baking spices coming from the new oak. And at the very end of the palate, I think is when the peat smoke comes in and the softness of the sherry. And we're covering a lot of ground with this whiskey, is the idea. So we're kind of pushing the category forward in this base spirit, this 5 malt aged in new oak, but we're also referencing the past of these Scottish malts that are obviously some are peated and some are aged in sherry casks. So something that's very new and something that's familiar.
I don't know if you said it already, but generally when I'm introducing flagship to folks, I don't mention the peated part, and just in case they don't catch it, because people always mention the peated part. Because it's part of the structure and it makes sense, and I like to explain why you use it when they do say, oh, is there a little bit of peat smoke on here? And they say, well, actually, yes, because you're using it for structure and finish. Is that right?
Yeah, so largely when I use peated malt at low percentages, and this one's hovering around 10 to 12%, it's largely to make it more interesting, but also extends the finish quite a bit. Just that small amount of peat can carry it, can make it stay on the palate for a little longer, which I personally think is a lot more interesting, a lot more compelling, something you're going to pick up again and again.
Mm-hmm. But something that's not really aggressive. So that's why I only bring it up if they.
Yeah. The reason Anna's saying this is because there's this somewhat pervasive fear of peat. It feels like, just because it has a little bit of peated malt doesn't mean it's going to be dominated by that smoke. But yeah.
Well, the real question is, Kate, did you notice it before we mentioned it? Because I know you're not a fan of peat.
Yeah, I can smell it. I don't even want to taste it because it'll ruin everything else afterwards. So I want to save it for the end. Okay. Or I want to save it for, later when we get to other peated stuff. But I've had the flagship before, and I know. I know
there's no other peat. Really, there's no other peat. So
okay, great. Then I'll just have it last.
There you go. Okay,
thanks.
Kate, you know what they say if you smelt it, right?
What?
You know what they say if you smelt it.
Anyway.
Are you smoking it in the country, or you bring it smoke from overseas? Or?
No, this one's imported. So this is from Baird's Maltings. It's spec to 55 ppm, which is considered heavily peated.
And are you still making this? I mean, this was like an old release. You're just combining old stocks essentially at this point, right?
Exactly. So the peated sphere we haven't made in years. Because like I said, starting early on, we did have a release where 49% of the vatting was peated malt. So it was driven by that. But then we decided to transition to having a singular flagship one. And also from like a ethos perspective, it stopped making sense to import peat. And we started making more of our local peat. I know you guys tasted Solom last time. For those who did the tasting with Tyler, that's an example of a peat from Washington at a much lower ppm.
But yeah, we do still have plenty of it in stock, so good to use it for things. And
we have a tremendous amount of stock, and it is a very high quality. So I'll be using it for years to come, for sure.
Much to my delight, anyway. Yeah.
So essentially, the flagship just keeps getting older, right? Every time you make a new batch, it's just older and older.
Exactly. So that component of flagship, which is not a huge component of it, but yes, that particular feature, the peat, will be getting older.
What about the rest of the casks that make up the flagship?
So this is a range of casks. So it'll range from, right now it's 5 to 8 years old, is the vatting. A lot of those peated ones and a lot of the sherry casks will be trending towards older, and the 5 malt in new oak can be in that 5 to 6 or 7 year range.
Understood.
Yeah, it's fun to play, like to not have rules on the age of it, because it's interesting to play the different ages against each other, and the peat inherently is getting older.
How hard has it been for you to keep consistency on the flagship?
Sorry, I didn't catch that whole question.
How hard has the consistency aspect of it been for you? Because I'm assuming you're trying to match last year's flagship to this year's flagship.
Yeah, to a certain extent. Yeah, at least try to keep a theme together. Like, it's not going to be exact. It's one of these things where it is very close. So let's say I've done 9 battings of flagship. Like, it's going to 8 and 9 are going to be pretty close, but maybe 2 and 9 are farther apart. Maybe because the sherry casts at the time weren't exactly the same, and different elements like that. But for the most part, it'll be our most stable batting. Of all the ones that we're tasting now, will be the most consistent in its profile.
I was like, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I really like it. I do like that Pete gives it kind of some structure as well. And so I mean, I love Westland, period, but I really like the flagship. I had a quick question. So friend brought me the Seattle Kraken one from.
Yes.
Is this just the flagship, or does it have anything different?
The only thing different is the label. So that's a flagship. Yeah, special label, but that's about it.
It is cool. Nice.
The whiskey is still good, just
different. I love it.
Yeah.
What kind of yeast do you guys use? And is it the same throughout, or do you experiment?
Yeah, so that's actually, we changed quite a few things, but that has been the consistent. We use a Belgian Saison brewer's yeast. T58, SAF brew T58, if you want to,
by Fermentis, if you're looking.
Steal the recipe. Yeah, so it's all on this premise of like building up flavor. So you think about, not a lot of single malt goes directly into new oak, but if you can build up the flavor profile enough, it can. So starting early on, Matt Hoffman, he was doing different prototypes of the 5 malt grain bill. He was saying, okay, here's these roasted malts. Brewers use them. You think about, stouts or darker beers, they're using them for that flavor. Why not make a single malt with this? So tried it out, and you don't get as good of yield from that. So you're sacrificing a bit of yield for that flavor. Same thing goes with the Saison yeast. You think about, okay, fermentation is the next step. What is the yeast that drives flavor? A Saison yeast, that defines what a Saison is that yeast. So you add that and you start to develop these ester notes, red fruit notes, a little bit of spice to it. And you're also there, you're sacrificing yield a little bit there. So there's going to be a theme here of like prioritizing flavor over efficiency. It takes a little bit longer to ferment, but it develops that flavor. And then by the time you distill it, so we do a classic pot still, double distillation. By the time that gets into cask, it can go into new oak and it can stand up and you can still taste the malt, you can taste the fruit, and it's not washed out by the cask. So it's kind of a premise of that.
Any other comments, questions on flagship, or are we ready to move on to the next dram?
I know the flagship, you guys are always really proud of your 5 malt mash bill. What are the percentages on the malts?
Yeah, so it's large. So 70% is wash and select, and then there's a similar amount of there's a malt called extra special malt from Brice.
12% extra special. Yeah, whatever.
12 to 15% extra special, and then like 12% Munich malt. And then the remaining is split between a brown malt and a pale chocolate malt.
So those are typically used in porters and stouts. So that's where you're going to get a little goes a long way with those. And obviously you're not going to get a lot of yield from that either because all the sugars have been caramelized. But it adds a lot to that chocolatey coffee note that you get at the finish.
Yeah, if anyone's had Glenmorangie Signet, they use some roasted malts in that. I believe Stranahan's at low amounts. We'll use some roasted malts.
And Deer Hammer as well from Colorado. That's too. There's a couple other folks that are now starting to do that more, but I think besides Glenmorangie, you might have been the first ones to do more of it anyway.
Yeah, certainly at the complexity and scale.
Yeah.
And when you have your Washington Pale Malt single barrel releases, is that the 70% that's part of this, or is that a completely separate malt?
Yeah, exactly. If it's called Washington Select or Washington Pale, it's the same malt. But during our exploration of different varieties, a lot of those are spec'd as a pale malt. Yeah.
Which has more to do with like the kilning and stuff, which you can get into that.
Yeah. In brewing, it's what they would call a base malt. So something, that's not kilned to a high level. None of it is caramelized. It's what would be the base of your beer. So is driving the alcohol yield.
Yeah, that was the one thing that blew my mind last time was that like the chocolate or the brown malt, or it's not a different kind of barley. It's just cooked longer. It's the same thing, just cooked longer, right?
Yeah, exactly. So those are something, that are, just like coffee, a coffee roaster can roast to different levels. These are just different levels of roasting. The pale chocolate is a pretty high level of roasting as far as barley goes. When was this? There was a shortage of coffee in this country, and they actually did use roasted barley as like a supplement for coffee in some, wartime era.
But the Signet and some of the other they use a chocolate barley or something, like a Maris barley or something. Is it? Am I getting
Maris
that right?
Otter is a varietal.
Maris Otter.
UK, it's delicious. But it's still, even if they say it's chocolate barley, it's a kilning level or a roasting level. It's not going to be. I say that very confidently. I don't think there's a varietal that's called that. If there is, we haven't heard of it, but I don't think so. It's more about the roasting,
right?
So it's processing of it, yeah, which is what you use.
Yeah. But I guess they say they do that with the Maris barley, and I wonder if that's just the Maris barley has, when you roast it enough, it caramelizes in a certain way more than other barleys. I don't know. I'm asking.
I think your audio cut out, but can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. I don't know.
We can hear you.
Okay. Can you guys?
100%.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Now we can't. Now we can't hear you. Nope, you guys went mute. Mime it.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, great. I think the speaker just decided to quit.
Shut up.
That's fine.
Anyways, the premise of using like a particular variety to be roasted in a way would be interesting, but I don't know like what would be different from variety to variety after you roast it. I think it would they'd be more similar than they would be different, I'd imagine, because roasting does quite a bit to it.
It's already, I mean, you'll see this, that the selections that Shane chose for the barley varietals that we're trying at the end, those are very different flavors, but even, I mean, between those are very different, but otherwise it's pretty nuanced. So I think once you roast it, that would kind of negate the differences.
If I had to speculate, I'd say it would wash out any difference of variety.
And I will say this, that most of those roasted malts like that dark and pale chocolate malt, brown malt, etc., most of those tend to be from the UK. We're now finally starting to get some from the US. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
We're working towards doing all. So for a while, they're from Thomas Fawcett and Sons in the UK, because people here really weren't making those particular malts. But now we've done full USA on the 5 malt grain bill as of late.
Yeah, just not what you'll be tasting tonight. But with all of that, I would say too that in the UK they're not exploring as much, although that's somewhat changing in some places. They're not exploring as much with barley varietals, and they tend to use, all the farmers grow the same thing, so all the maltsters have the same stuff. So they'll be like, oh, this year we're all having concerto. This year we're all having sassy or opera or whatever. So I would be somewhat surprised if there was differences going on with that. But it's an interesting idea. Maybe somebody can do it at home for a little coffee roaster. But.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right, should we
move on to beer?
Glide.
Yeah, let's move on to the beer and wine.
Okay, beer cask first, please. And you guys have, I think, was it batch 1? I believe. I hope.
You should have batch 1, right?
Yes.
Oh, bottle.
I think that's what it. Poured myself a lot.
Yeah, you're good.
Jeez.
So you won't guess what this one is. So it's called beer cask finish. The name is intentionally kept simple and broad. It's not, called a stout finish or, an IPA finish or something like that. But it keeps it open because pretty much since day one of operating in Seattle, we had brewers calling us and asking us to buy casks. And instead of it just being a one-way transaction, we decided we would loan casks out to them, with the only stipulation that they had to do one project and they couldn't destroy the cask, which that second one you think is simple, but some brewers managed to overcome that challenge. But most of them are really good partners. We loan out a certain number of casks. They fill it with whatever beer they want. Yeah, no rules. They're brewers. I'm not. I sort of trust them. A lot of quality brewers in Seattle. Once they finish it, they bottle that beer. They give it back to us, and then we finish our spirit in it. This one in particular is batch 1, which we're talking a little bit about variability. So these we're releasing in batches as opposed to editions. When we say an edition, it means we're coming out every year with one. So Garryana, which we'll sample in a minute, comes out every year as a new vatting. These batches are around until they're gone. So it's not necessarily every year the second and third batch will come out. And there'll be a little bit of a through line connecting them, some similarities, but not. The intent is for them to vary a bit, because we've worked with over 30 different brewers from the region, all doing different styles. So even if they're both making a stout, they're not exactly the same. So there's inherent variability built into it. Sort of what defines this one straight away is a lot of space, a lot of brightness. This is driven by the majority, so about 83% of this is pale malt that started in ex-bourbon for 3 to 4 years and then got finished in a beer cask from 4 to 5 years. So that makes up over 80%. The rest is that 5 malt that started in new oak and then went into a beer cask. So very good contrast to the first sample. and you can see the differences in malt. So this one, we don't put an age statement on it, but minimum is 8 years old. That cat, like a ghost, came out of nowhere.
Is that whiskey or the other one?
Okay. It's the other one.
I can never remember her name.
Asti.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I got
excited. Yeah, so this one in particular, 7 breweries, 6 different beer styles. Majority driven by Scotch ale. We have stout, we have brown ale, Doppelbock, saison, and then a stock ale, also known as a strong ale.
This tastes a bit hotter than I was expecting at 46%. What is that, or is it just me?
I mean, it's not just you. If you're tasting that, that's a tasting note. That's what I always say. So as compared to the first one on the palate, I don't know if you got it on the palate or not. I know you were resisting the peat. So sometimes, I mean, it's twofold. If it's your first tasting, they always taste like they're a bit higher. But this one, since a lot of it is that pale malt that started in ex-bourbon, it doesn't quite have the same coating as like even a new oak, but more so a sherry cask.
This one always surprised me because I think we've had some cask exchanges before that we've done with you guys, I believe, or you've had some of our cask exchanges before. They're usually distiller exclusive. Anyway, this is what this program has come from, but they oftentimes or sometimes can be a bit heavier, especially if it's like a porter or a stout or something like this. I really like how this one is so bright and much fruitier than I had anticipated, and I'm not a beer drinker. That's just pre-whiskey for me. So the fact that we're able to do this beer finish and it's so bright, and I hate to say sessionable, but sessionable. But
session IPA.
It's so bright and fruity, and I think it's just really surprising in a cool way.
Yeah, the interesting thing about making a beer finished whiskey is you don't, or at least I don't want it to taste like a beer. It's sort of gross if it tastes a little bit like a beer.
It's not a beer schnapps.
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy for the hops to take over. You could imagine just a little bit goes a long way, and then it kind of gets this almost soapy taste to it. So that was definitely a challenge when making this batting, to not let it, taste like a beer, but have hints here and there. And we can contrast this once we taste the wine one, but structurally this one was meant to have a lot of little peaks and valleys to it, and have complexity that way and ups and downs of note, as opposed to just being consistently one note or another.
Here's a question. Any interesting mistakes along the way while you were...
Interesting mistakes? Is it hard to... Just with the beer cast in general? So there's some ones that, people made like a fresh hop IPA in the cask, which it was just one cask.
Oh God.
But it's pretty over the top. I'll say that.
It's rather divisive.
It's rather divisive. There's no bad casks. It's just like where to find it in a batting. The nose has somewhat promise, but the palate is just way, way over the top on the hop note. So that one's a standout as a challenge in the future myself.
What is the base? What are you putting into these beer casks? And can you share a little bit about? You implied that you're keeping them in there for short periods of time. Is it you're keeping them in there for months and rotating them across the 6? Is it 6 of them that you're bringing together?
So sorry if it wasn't clear before, but so the base that goes into it is 2 different things. One of them is pale malt that's been aging in ex-bourbon for 3 to 4 years, but then we put it in, like you transfer it out of whether it's a vatting or that single cask into the beer cask for another 4 to 5 years. So this finish is actually very long in terms of like industry standards. So the 6 to 7 thing was the number of brewers that we worked with and the number of beer styles in this one. But the finishing time, it's almost not a finish. Like
it's a secondary maturation.
Secondary maturation. There's always this debate, within, not really a debate, but a discussion in the industry of like finishing something implies that it's fast, like, oh, it's not done until it's here. But I mean, the spirit's maturing for another 4 years. So though that fruit character is developing as well as getting some character from the beer.
And to answer your second part of that question, it's all the different casks, these individual casks that then are brought together in a vatting. So not just transferring from cask to cask. That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, that would be logistically a real pain.
Scott would love
it. Yeah, so this vatting in particular, 43 separate casks that just did that, singular journey from, being a Westland whiskey, either ex-bourbon or new oak, and then being put in a 2-beer cask.
So you put all this, you put all this into a vat and then you let it sit for a little bit and then you bottle it?
Yeah, so there's the marrying phase, which is when you dump all the casks together and sort of like mix it up a bit, but then let it sit for us, we do a minimum of a month, usually longer than that. Because right when you mix it together, it's not quite right. It's a little bit overly volatile or jumpy. I always say jumpy, yes, in a way where like the notes are disconnected. So I think marrying is an apt word for what's going on in the tank.
Siddharth, did you have another question?
We're only on the second dram, so more to come, I'm sure.
Yeah. I was like, come on, dude. I know you have them.
I know.
Okay,
generally really, really tasty for a beer cask. And most beer casks are obnoxious, like just not good. So nicely done, guys.
Yeah, this is that. I mean, obviously that's in the back of your head when you're making it. Like, what can this be? You don't want it to like beat you over the head with a beer style, but I think we're able to do an interesting thing because of all the different styles that we were working with, and because we had this fairly mature spirit that was in the cask for a long time. Like I said, this is it doesn't have an age statement, but this is one of our older battings at a minimum of 8 years old for this batch.
With all the different beer styles you guys are doing, does it end up kind of averaging out to a pretty similar flavor across the batches, or is that too early to tell now?
Across the batches, there is a similarity. I wouldn't say it like evens everything out, but I mean, there's certain brewers, Black Raven being one of them, where, I mean, we have close to like 500 or so casks that are considered exchange casks that we've loaned out. Black Raven alone accounts for nearly 100 of those. So and they were making a lot of Scotch ale, a lot of stout. So that's going to be the backbone of the commonality between a lot of them. But there will also change the ratio of pale malt to 5 malt will change a little bit from batch to batch. Like this one in particular is about 80-20 pale malt to 5 malt. The next one is going to be more like 60-40. So that's going to influence the final outcome quite a bit too. But yeah, what you're getting at is, yes, there is a backbone that will be similar, that will connect all the releases, and they won't be as wildly different as, say, a Garryana release or something like that.
Yeah, we've just done batches 1 and 2 so far, so more to learn and explore.
Yeah, I personally am working on 3, but I'm a little bit ahead of the game.
Yes, this is batch 1, Kate, to answer your question. I do have a list on my computer as well of like all the different places in California that have these various SKUs. So at the end, I can answer questions about that too, but obviously Vadim's already over it already, but I'm all over it rather. So yeah, touch on it later. Okay, we ready for wine cask?
If I remember correctly, just for people looking for these when they get to their store, I know my store that I mentioned, your like release, unless it's like Garryana, the releases have the same SKU on the back, so they will usually stock them, and it'll just so double check the bottle when you go there if you specifically want 1 or 2 or whatever. Just they won't have it.
Just give number 2 and believe that it's going to be great.
Yeah, a little bit of trust.
Come on, man.
Or go get 1 and 2 and have a tasting.
There it is. There it is, Kate. Perfect.
Anna, you didn't go all the way with that whole sales pitch, man. I had to take you there.
Well, you did it for me. I don't have to. It's okay.
You're
doing the full on. Oh, see, I've been doing it all wrong. He's such a pro. He does a rinse on the glass first. Then we do the actual pour. I'm so used to pouring at festivals. You don't get to do this.
Yeah. The luxury to do the rinse. So before most tastings, I always rinse out my glass with the whiskey that I'm tasting. I mean, it's good. It's a twofold thing. I mean, one, it'll get anything that's in the glass out of there. And the second thing is that it gets...
We're not flinging it on the floor, dude.
It gets the whiskey high up on the glass. So it becomes much more accessible on the nose.
Yeah. So you don't have to cover and shake it either. I've seen people do that.
I've seen people do it.
Glasses break that.
Yeah. Some people like to rub it on their hands. I'm not really in that camp. But, teach their own. This one, again, with a very, obscure name, wine cask finish. This is a bit of a theme, so we're trying to express the place that we are. There is, a lot of breweries here. There's also a lot of world-class winemakers here, so we can, call them up or email them, ask if they have casks available. At this point, they could sort of contact me and say, "Oh, we're dumping X amount of casks. How many do you want?" So this is really nice because we can tell them to, not treat it with sulfur or anything like that, and we can get them really quick before they dry out. So that's a huge advantage. And as soon as you get this on the nose, I mean, you can tell it's massively different from the beer one. It's not just because of the wine cask. It's because that base level structure is a bit different. So this is more heavily weighted towards that 5 malt aged in new oak and then put in wine casks, or pale malt aged in a bourbon cask and put in that. So that's about 60-40 5 malt to pale malt.
Yeah, first thing I got on the nose, I actually had to make sure I had the right thing, because this one on the nose immediately made me think more of a traditional beer cask, in the sense that I got so much malt, but that was the underlying spirit coming through more than the actual wine or the barrels themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the glory of the 5 malt mash bill, is it can show up even when you're putting in these fairly big wine casks. These aren't small. These are, Cab, Syrah, Tempranillo. These are big reds. But to have, that base malt shine all the way through is a big feature of the 5 malt mash bill.
Are you only doing the big red casks, or are you doing any like Pinot and Chardonnay?
We don't have Pinot casks. We have some Chardonnay casks. It's one of those things, like in Washington, Cab is king. It's big reds. Like Oregon is more of Pinot country. So maybe in the future, get some Pinot casks. But this is where at the, it's what these winemakers are making. They're making a lot of Cab and a lot of Syrah. Some Chardonnay. We have some heavily peated spirit in a Chardonnay cask that's really interesting. That's going to be a hand fill. So at our distillery, we have, if you have never been, please come visit us. I would love to see you here. But we have a hand fill experience where you get to fill your own bottle, and it rotates with whatever we have. Right now, it's a white port, which is gorgeous. But we have one that is coming up at the end of next year, I believe, that is a peated in Chardonnay, and it is wild. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. But yeah, the Chardonnay casks are much more rare within our stocks than the bigger reds.
I think it's 5 malt, the Deem. I know, you and I can talk.
What is that?
He asked about that. He loves sherry.
Yeah.
And richer, darker things like that. So he's excited about the port finish. He asked if it's pale malt. I said no. I think it's 5 malt. I have to look. I'll
to tack on to what Vadim is asking about. What about other sweet wines like Sauternes or Tokais or anything like that? I mean, I know that's not local, but ice wine, I guess, is closer. But anyway, like something sweet for a finish. And
Sorry, can you start again? I'm sorry, our speaker decided to just turn off again.
To tack on to what Vadim is going towards, have you thought of a sweet wine finish? So Sauterne, Tokai, ice wine.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we don't have any ice wine. We don't have any Tokai. So as far as sweet wines, we have PX, obviously.
Sauterne.
Which is wildly sweet. Yeah, we have Sauternes. We have some Muscatel. We have some Pajarete, which is a mixture of PX and Muscatel. Yeah, those are more on our sweeter side. But yeah,
I had a Sauterne of yours, and it was absolutely incredible. It's one of my favorite whiskeys of all time.
Oh,
which whiskey?
This one?
No, a Sauterne finished one from you guys.
Oh yeah. That one turned out really well. And the Sauternes cask within the stock are pretty rare. We don't have very many of them.
No, 2 of them are not gone for sure.
Yeah.
One to Single Cask Nation, one for us. But yeah, it is really good.
Is this wine cask also batch 1?
Yes, this is also batch 1. Yeah, so you can tell, I sort of hinted at this earlier, but structurally different from the beer one, where the beer one has a lot of little peaks and valleys and nuances, and this one, it sort of washes over you. It's more of a wave. It's more all-consuming. And this was intentional when making these, because you'd think, they're automatically going to be very different, but you can make decisions within the blending room that would have made them similar, but one of them structurally to be distinctly different.
Nice.
I was
same idea. Oh,
sorry, Eladio, go ahead.
Oh, just quickly. So same idea that you have with the beer, that the different batches gives you space to try different types of casks from different wineries in the Northwest.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the premise, to keep it open, not defined by a single winery or wine type or variety or anything like that. It's just wine cask finish. And like Kate was saying, you could open it up, to some sweeter wines, some dessert style, which I'm trying to track down all the people in Washington that make like a dessert style wine, because that would be fun for sure.
That could be a special edition thing.
I was actually thinking some like a Sauterne that's heavily what's the right, how to say it? Botrytis.
Botrytis is how people say. Yeah, that's botrytis.
Botrytis, yeah, because I think that there would be a grab in there, from the botrytis, and that would just go, you get the whiskey, and then you get the botrytis grab, and then you get the finish of the sweet wine. I think that would be a really interesting thing. Of course, I don't know if that would actually work, but
yeah, I mean, it works on paper. You'd have to test it out, make some prototypes.
Interesting idea.
Can I ask something about your packaging? Just on a side note, I've noticed you went to the twist off. You went back to now I think you guys are using fake cork. What are the decisions behind that? Because I kind of like the twist off.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about the twist off.
Originally,
obviously it doesn't like dry out or break off in your bottle when you do the twist. It's a better seal. But for us, there was a lot of bottles where people were really struggling to get off the twist top. Some would get really stuck on the way the glass threads were.
I would like to say that once my husband had to get a wrench. I'm not making it up to get one off. So
Vice grip.
Pliers
Exactly.
pliers to get it off.
Run it under really hot water. It was kind of too much.
And that it happened because of when it's tightened on the bottling line, and then when the closure or the capsule would go over it and it would be tightened over that, it would twist it further and just tighten it more. So there's only so much you can do to prevent that on our system, on our bottling line, such as it is. So it was something that we've just been dealing with for a long time. Let's just
it was time to did a bottle redesign. It was time to just go with the cork and
At least it's not real cork, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Nobody needs that broken off. This is great. Yeah, comparatively.
All right, we should probably keep churning.
Yeah. Onwards to Gary 10.
So what is this Garryana you speak of? I've heard a couple of things about it.
I have a
Kind of a
feeling
big deal.
Well, I mean, your whole story about it is great. So.
My personal journey?
Your personal journey with Garryana.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, my first project as a solo blender was actually making Garryana 1. This was because the original batting of it, which was designed by one of our founders, Matt Hoffman, he sent the harvest list, as we call it, which is the cask to pull to go into the batting, to the rack house. They accidentally pulled a cask that sort of ruined the batting. It was a cask with a lot of character. And so Matt was moving on to other things. So he's like, okay, I need you to start working on this replacement version of it. And this is 2016. And so these casks, these Gary oak casks, are made from, as you've guessed it, Garryana oak. So standard white American oak is Quercus alba, and this is Quercus Garryana. And standard white American oak grows on the eastern half of the Rockies, basically on the whole eastern half of the U.S. But Quercus Garryana grows in a pretty thin band from southern BC down into California. And it has a wildly different character than white American oak. It's probably more similar in character to a French oak. It has a lot of spice. It has less vanilla and less coconut than standard white American oak, and more concentrated spice notes, particularly clove. The clove note can be really concentrated. And I say this every time, and I'm assuming people are exhausted by it, but I always reference Dune when I talk about Garryana, because it's the spice that's really hard to define, but it has a lot of power. You don't really know what it is, but it also, sort of runs the universe. And so it has all this power. And so none of the Garryana ones have been 100% Gary oak. These are all batting. These are all features. So you're featuring something that has a really defining character in each one of these. So in the past, we've played it against PX, we've played it against some Oloroso casks. Are you voting? Polls, quizzes.
Yes, commonly. I'm just going to pick.
Sure. I like this. And so this one in particular, the biggest thing is the age statement. This is our first ever age statement whiskey. This isn't to say that something that's older is necessarily a better spirit. We stand by can be a really good whiskey at varying ages, but it's a line in the sand, and it is within the whiskey industry. There's all these 10-year-olds on the shelf, and to put something with Westland's name on it, American single malt on the shelf, 10-year-old, and have it be Garryana, it's like it concentrates a lot in one space. It's kind of like, we're here. We could make this 10-year-old at a really high quality using this very unique species of oak. So we're doing a lot of things at once, and I hope you enjoy it. People feel free to throw out some tasting notes.
Yeah. We're not doing a fabulous job of keeping up on the chat, so feel free to shout them out. Let's make it I know.
It doesn't have the creamy stuff that you might get out of the oily, I don't know the right term, that you might get out of the Alba, but and it's a bit more tannic. It's a really, really, really nice whiskey.
The wood itself, I don't know if you said this already, it is naturally more tannic. It needs to be air dried for 36 months instead of the standard 18 to 24, because otherwise it would be rather aggressive. That's you can say it. Just say it.
I was just typing it. I'm sorry, I saw the chat. Someone's asking how much of this is Gary oak. So around 32% of this batting is the Gary oak. I just pulled my notes. I'm sure I'm right.
Yeah, so it differs from each edition, which I think is really fascinating. We were just talking about this week, from batch 1 all the way through, or excuse me, edition 1 all the way through, and each of them have a different percentage of Garryana. But they also have a different focus between them all, as well as what you're pairing it with.
Yeah, but if anyone's followed Westland along these years, obviously this is the 10th edition of Garryana, and each one, there's not some stable, forest of Gary oak that's being harvested just for commercial use. So a lot of these trees, fell down for one reason or another, or being cut down on someone's property. Some of the wood has been air dried for, upwards of 8 years, sitting in a lumber yard. Other ones are 4 years, so that's going to affect the tannin level, as you brought up earlier. It's a pretty high tannin level, pretty concentrated on that. But if you air dry it, the longer you air dry it, the more those tannins will break down in the wood. So it's something that's older. So they're very variable, which makes it a fun blending tool, because every year I come back to it. You have to do a reset, because not all these Gary oak casts are going to behave the same way or taste the same way because of all these variables.
So is the Garryana a relatively easy oak to work with, or is it really painful like the Mizunara?
Yeah, it is not easy to work with. So it grows in these oak savannas. So the oaks are pretty far from each other, so they end up branching somewhat close to the ground. So there ends up being a lot of knots in it, so you don't get very much board feet per tree. So it's similar, to the Mizunara, where it is hard to work with. And it's very unique, not only from the region, but also the amount of cast that you can make per tree is less than these somewhat more managed Quercus alba ones, where the trees are growing pretty close together. And when trees grow closer together, they grow up and they branch at the top. So you have these long, straight trees.
And they have to be cut in a certain way, otherwise they warp.
Yeah, they're quite, I don't know how. I mean, I assume this group likes to get into the weeds on things.
Yes.
But so with Quercus alba, you can flat saw it, which you can imagine trees like this, and you're just, cutting boards like this. But this, similar to French oak, it should be quarter sawn to prevent some warping on the heads, which means you cut it into quarters and then you cut planks out of each quarter. So this is just to work a little bit with the structure of the tree to make sure it doesn't warp quite as much on the heads.
Or become super leaky.
Yeah, we had like a run-in with a few casts that weren't quarter sawn, and they started leaking from the heads, so had to transfer to different casks.
Quarter sawn is.
I get this weird combination of like there's sandalwood, shea butter, and like I want to say it's like marzipan. Like there's this almondy cookie note.
Mm.
But there's also kind of a funk to it, and Sid was talking about it. It's like it's not a sherry, it's not sulfur. It's some other different kind of funk that is kind of, but it's natural. It's like something you're out in the forest and you smell some weird combination of, I don't know, moss or partially, decaying like after rain.
I like your description rather than the farty adjacent.
That's for the SMWS bottling. It's farty adjacent.
Yeah, I want to see that on a bottle. I mean, but there's a lot of different other cask types.
There's a lot to there. Obviously, it's more than some of its parts, but in this particular vatting, there's a lot of different cask types. It's led by this Gary oak, but also has a fair amount of rum casks in it. From Mount Gay, we have some refill of our own cask, so something that 5 malt was in when it was new, and then refilled it. Has a percentage of PX hogsheads. It has a little bit of some Tempranillo wine casks, and then even less port casks.
But like the tiniest amount, the percentages on
the tiniest amount, because this one actually has pieces of Garryana 1 and Garryana 2 that never got bottled, and they were just in cask aging. So they had all these different components in them that sort of carried over to this one. But it's more defined by the top ones, which are like the new Gary oak, the rum, and the refill Westland casks.
So the the way you describe this, it sounds like the way I would do an experiment. Just try a little bit of this, a little bit of that, see what it tastes good. But I know that's not what you do. But that's
I mean,
like how you do that.
It's not. It's not entirely off base. So I start off with what is eligible for a particular release. So this one, I looked at the stocks and I was like, we have enough to try different versions of a 10-year-old. So the way I start is I make sub blends. So there'll be certain cask combinations or certain spirit cask combinations that I'll make little battings of, these little pieces. And then I'll build prototypes from them using different percentages. So I make the sub blends. I don't taste anything. I make the prototypes. Usually when I'm starting off from scratch, I'll make 6 or so prototypes, taste through them, and then there'll be characters that I either like or don't like or want to focus more on. And then I'll look back to the structure of those prototypes, see what sub blends went into them, and said, oh, I liked the prototypes that had this sub blend in it, because there'll be, oh, this prototype and this one had the same sub blend. I like that. I want to focus more on that. I didn't like the character that this other sub blend was bringing. I'll either take that out or lower the percentage of it. So this is how you end up with a lot of this, complexity, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But it's one of those things. So on paper, it seems really complicated, but within the vatting, like there's certain roles that they play. And I talk about this quite a bit. I talk about the idea of like it's space and time. So like things that can create more space in the blend, since Gary Oak's really concentrated, these other things have to be able to, spread out those Gary Oak notes. This is for the 10-year-old in particular, spread out those concentrated spice notes. So they're playing that role rather than I've made vattings in the past, particularly 9 and 8, where they're vatted with really big ones, like a big Oloroso cask, and that's sort of challenging the Gary Oak notes.
Yeah, I was at a Balcones dinner, and Jared was saying how he mocked Westland because of Garryana. He's like, I always wanted him to go like full Garryana. He goes, and then we tried to do something with Texas Live Oak, and I realized what a horrible mistake that was.
I brought some of that in for you, and that shit's aggressive.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's the tame version.
Oh, I got to have some of the untamed as well.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. How they had to do that with the very short finishing times and refill usage in order to make it so it actually worked was like such an interesting challenge for Gabe and Emma to like sort that out. Because it's the same kind of thing, something that has so much flavor in it. You don't need, like, there's something to be said for a flavor bomb, but also not an assault.
Yeah, and so you're thinking about this, and you get it on the palate, and it's pretty drying and pretty tannic, and this is only 32%, which the percentage doesn't always like tell the whole story, but yeah, that's a third of this. If you go full on, it really dries out the palate. But on the other hand, it makes it a great blending tool to be able to play with the different percentages and either spread out the notes or play them against, like we brought up earlier, talking about sweet wine casks. Like you have something that's really dry, you can vat it with pretty sweet casks, and you get a balanced whiskey as opposed to being overly sweet or something like that.
And we have done a few single casks at the distillery. I didn't get to try the earlier ones, but the one we had last year was also a refill or like a second fill, and that was really lovely.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be fun to see how those develop over time, because you're playing with both new oak and refill casks, but as you have more of those to play with, to get to see what happens.
What are you seeing with the refill Garryana versus the first fill?
Talking about versus first fill, yeah. So the first fill is incredibly concentrated. Like you're saying, that it's really drying on the palate and tannic, and that clove can be really concentrated. But it's kind of like it sounds. The second fill is just taking a step back from that. So it's not so concentrated, but it's still present. So I could imagine if I was relying on the second fill, I'd use a much higher percentage in the vatting, most likely. There's a little bit of a tamer version, but a tamer version of Garry is still pretty big.
It's sort of like if you, I mean, any of these, anytime you reuse barrel, it's like a tea bag, right? The first time it's really intense, and then the second time when you brew it again, it's gonna be a little less. So it's like the first time if you like super overbrewed your tea, just almost stringent, but
yeah, which is a great blending tool, but not always the best on its own.
I don't know if you've been looking at the tasting notes, but it's really fun to be watching the tasting notes, and so many people, everybody's got something different that they're tasting. And here's the thing, as I taste it, I taste every one of those things, and it depends on like one time I just took a barely little sip and I put it on my tongue, and I could taste one of these tasting notes, but when I took a bigger sip, I tasted something different. So this is just one of those that every time you have a sip of it, you're going to have a different experience. It's just one of those whiskeys. It's really fabulous. Great job.
Yeah, Garry Oak is like that too. It definitely pays off to leave it in the glass for a little bit.
I mean, I think you can only attribute some of that to the Garryana, right? Because it clearly some of it is what's in, the rum and the port cask, or whatever else you put in it. I mean,
yeah, of course.
Siddharth is coming in hot with the questions. Good questions, by the way. So I don't remember how many prototypes you went through for this, and then also what have been your favorite, asking your favorite child. You know better than that, sir.
My favorite Garryana is Garryana 11.
You know what? My favorite child is my fourth child. There you go. I understand that. That makes sense. One of the other questions I had earlier, Shane, was when you think about the number of casks that you're bringing in to put this together, are you nosing and assessing each of them, knowing? Well, I'm interested in the process part of this. So You've got all these components. Are you assessing all the casks?
No, I don't. Yeah. So like at the end of the day, I'm a whiskey blender. So my biggest interest is seeing how things behave together. And this is also the premise of the sort of the sub blend approach. Because he always sees like, this is the blending lab, and they have like 100 bottles lined up, which is like, it feels like insanity to go through that many samples and think you're making like a good judgment, or to even say like, oh, I taste this one cask, like I know it's going to do this in this vatting. And so that's why I work backwards. Like I build the blend before I taste any of the individual cask generally. So there are exceptions where if it's a really small vatting, and maybe I was tasting casks for a single cask release, and I thought to myself, this isn't there as a single cask, maybe it's really over the top. But if I'm going to put it in a small vatting, I'm going to frame it around that. So that's an exception to it. But for this vatting, which was 33 casks, I'll pull a bunch and do these sub blends and make the prototypes before I taste them individually, because I want to know how they behave when they're mixed with other casks, not how they are by themselves. And I don't want to make assumptions about what it'll be like in the vatting.
Because in blending, 1 + 1 does not equal 2.
Yeah. So there's always these things too, and like I always do like a bit of trickery. Like I'll code my samples, and so I don't know exactly what's what when I'm going through them. But when you taste something individually, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to put it at this percentage, you sort of have already told yourself what it's going to do. You know what I mean? So you're already like semi-primed for it's going to be this way, and I'd rather go in a little bit more blind and be able to compare my prototypes in a way where I don't know exactly what's going on in each one.
Yeah, there's some other good questions in here.
There's also a lot of learning that goes on when you do it in the. So I have a whole grid that I fill out when I'm tasting each whiskey, and one of them is recommended adjustment. And I try to make very specific recommended adjustments. And then I'll go back, I'll do that adjustment and then taste it and then see if I was right or wrong. And so all of these, I'm learning oh, I thought adding, 10% of this cab cask would make this vatting get where I want to. It didn't work. So then, okay, I've learned that didn't resolve what I thought it was going to.
Are you doing recommended adjustments on your blends or on the individuals, or both?
On the vat, so like I taste a prototype, and I have a grid that I fill out, which I have my nose, palate, I have like a different relative strength of different characteristics, and then I have a question where I say it's either like yes, meaning like this is it, this is really good. I have yes with minor adjustments. I have yes with minor adjustments, yes with major adjustments. No is one. And then no, find alternative destination, meaning like there's no way this is ever going to work for this vatting. So the recommended adjustment is of the prototypes. So I'll taste it and I'll think, oh, this is really compressed. I want to add 15% Washington pale malt that was aged in bourbon cask. Like that's what I'll write. Or like decrease PX casks or something like that. Decrease PX casks by 20%.
And because you know how our behaves after doing this for 10 years, you know how to play with that.
Yeah. And so it's a way of just like, building in, learning about the stocks while I'm doing the day-to-day of blending.
What does it look like are you also doing individual cask assessments or strain assessments where you're doing almost this industrial SWA approach of like, you're categorizing how these things, how you expect them to be versus maybe what they are? Does that make sense? Like there's the blending aspect of it, of saying, hey, here's how I want to adjust it. But before you get to the blend, you've got your individual components. Are you assessing them in a structural manner as well too?
Sometimes. So like not entirely, because like there is a logistical element to it. Like Gary Oak is going to go into Garryana. So like I know the destination and they're going to be a feature. So like, okay, how do you feature this in a different way? And so for flagship, and the backbone is 5 malt new oak. So we have X amount of 5 malt new oak at particular ages. That I've been working with for so long that it's very reliable and I sort of know how it's going to behave. Ones that like we have some different seasoned sherry casks that I kind of check in on. When we're doing variety specific ones, you'll check in on those here and there, but it's not quite as structured as the actual like prototype creation. We do single cask selection. So we'll have a method for that where I'll have other people taste them. And like single cask selection is very much shooting from the hip. Like it has to be something that grabs you, like, oh, you taste, you're like, oh, wow, that's really good. So the first assessment of the first person is just a yes or no. And then I have a second person taste it. And if they also say yes, that's 2 yeses, then they'll write some tasting notes. And then we'll get like a third confirmation yes, usually from myself. So like that's a way of looking at individual casks, which could be components. Like that's probably the most interesting thing about going through single cask and being like, this isn't a single cask, but it would be a really good blending component.
But what you're, I think, distinctly referring to is something that I have seen at other distilleries that we don't do, of like regularly grading every cask we have. No. You did that more in the beginning, but now that you kind of know how our stuff works.
I did it quite a bit at the beginning, and I'll do, like, I have a lot of it on paper, whether something's meant to be like a primary feature of a cask, whether it's meant to be a blending roll. Because you could imagine, like, you make the whiskeys, and like things will have a primary destination. You either have to like, you know, confirm or deny that without like a full evaluation of it. So usually it always comes up when you're making battings consistently that you'll be like, oh, this is eligible. Oh, that's interesting. That's an outlier. That's a 5 malt recipe that we didn't use one of these malts. So like that's something I'll check in on. And if I'm making something like flagship, be like, okay, we made this lot of 5 malt. We like for some reason or another we couldn't buy brown malt at the time. So I'll take that component and do sort of an isolation of, oh, here's a vatting that includes that, and here's a vatting that doesn't include that, because I want to know if that's making a difference or not within, you know, say a flagship vatting.
Yeah, it's Yeah, and I like how you talk about this. It was a little, when I came in as a whiskey nerd when I started here, I was asking a similar question of like grading all of this. But one, it's a lot of casks to grade. And Shane is one person, and he's brilliant, but that's like a lot to do. And he needs to do other stuff too. And that's the fact that you are looking at how things are interacting is the important piece, not necessarily individually. And
yeah, there's also something to be said about just quality of process. Like to a certain degree, we make really good whiskey for a number of reasons, and I'm just on the the end of that process, so I get the privilege to be able to like put these things together. But it's because of what's going on, like in how we approach whiskey making and like how we assess quality, like earlier upstream from it. Like the distillers are like they're nosing it when they're making cuts and paying very close attention to these things.
And you regularly talk to like you guys are assessing things together and seeing to make sure the new make is where you guys want it to be.
Exactly. If anything changes in production, like we get together and we taste and we talk about the differences and talk about maybe adjustments that need to be made if it's not quite there. So is that open communication and just the fact that like there's not vast swaths of whiskey that are unusable. It's just figuring out where they fit within a blend.
Let's see. I know we had a couple questions, and Trent, do not apologize for asking questions. We love it. Otherwise, it's just us staring at ourselves on a screen, which is real boring. So yeah, Garryana is going to go back into Garryana. The casks, we aren't using them in other things currently.
No, those are currently not. There's a fair amount of stuff in Gary Oak. We've done some interesting things. Like we put heavily peated. We put our local peat into Gary Oak. Some of our variety specific ones have gone to Gary Oak. So there's a fair amount going on, and we'll refill them. At least 3 times.
Because they have a lot going on.
Yeah, they got a lot going on, and I'm curious to what they're like down the road, especially the third fill. Once those get older.
Here's some good other questions too.
I feel like we should get into these last 2 samples.
Yeah.
So we're starting to talk about
barley. Yeah.
Which one?
All right. Before we move on, anything else? Excuse me, about Garryana? Anyone want to touch on? Now's your chance. Okay. Cool.
I don't think Siddharth has asked any questions. Siddharth, did you have a question about Garryana?
It's so boring. There's no questions.
I've got a question for you about the Garryana. What's going to be the availability down here in California, especially after the incident?
The incident, yeah.
I know already. We were just talking about this with Max today. That like of the California allocation, at least half of it has been already ordered by California retailers. So I don't know what that number is, but you hit me up later and I can look I can get a little bit more information on that. Because I do know retailers that have ordered Garryana generally, but there will be some, and it is available on e-commerce now. But obviously support your local retailers too, and that will be coming out next. It'll be available next week in retailers at the earliest. So not a perfect answer, sorry.
But the point is we shouldn't go shopping for edition 10 this week. We should wait a week or 2.
Unless you want to order it online, which you can on our website. Actually, do we ship to California? I think we do.
I don't think you ship to California, do you? Do you guys ship now?
We have, yes. There. Thank you, Dean. Thank you. He's on it. That? Yes. It's not directly coming from the distillery, but there is some availability there. Like I said, e-commerce is available this week, but on the shelf retailers next week. So yes, don't go to Total Wine and ask them this weekend where it is, because they're going to tell you it's not there. So unless you want to get some of the past editions, which is also great, but very different. Yeah. Okay. Exciting stuff. Moving on to
for these last 2, if people have 2 glasses, it would be beneficial to kind of like have them at the same time to be able to compare really directly.
Which one are we pouring first?
So the way pour them at the same time, but the way I'm having them is the Bear one, and then the Genie one. So cask 6713 and cask 7417. The reason I thought this would be really interesting is because last time Tyler was focusing on, he was doing the hot steep, which a lot of that is getting at the barley characteristics and seeing what it does at the time when you're receiving the malt. And so I was looking through the stocks and trying to find particular barley varieties where we could, compare apples to apples, or I guess barley to barley. So these two samples are just about the same age. They're both 6 years old, and they were both aging in refill Cooper's Select, which is one of the new oaks that we use that has a heavier toast, lighter char. But this is the second fill of that. So originally had 5 malt, got dumped, got filled with these spirits. Cask 6713 is fair barley. And if anyone's familiar with Brooklotti, but they've also put out a bare barley release. So this is a really old, what they call landrace variety. What this means is that it wasn't made in a lab. Someone wasn't breeding it. It's just a variety that you can imagine of different generations of something growing. Like the genetics are going to change a little bit and then, stabilize at some point. It's something that thrives in particular environments. So this is what's called a landrace, is something that's sort of like something that was genetically stable that started to take over because it was thriving the most in a particular area. So I think like the first, like from a historical perspective, was like back in like the 8th century or something like that.
Okay.
Where fair barley was being used and consumed. So it's a 6-row barley, which barleys are 2-row and 6-row. It's just how the seed structure is on the stalk when you look down on it. It either has like 2 on either side, or they're staggered and it looks like there's 6. Usually 6-row has a higher protein content. 2-row has a lower protein content. So 6-row is often used by adjunct brewers. So some place like Budweiser or something like that, because they wanted a lot of enzyme activity, and enzymes are proteins in like the barley. The role that they play.
But it can be messy as well.
It can be messy as well. Yeah, it can be messy. And a lot of barley that's used for single malt production is 2-row barley. So that's a lot of information very quickly. What I really want to just get at is that the only difference between these two samples is the variety of barley. And sort of, I guess the question for all of you is, can you tell the difference? Is there a difference to you?
I know with mine that the second sample, I just rubbed the bottle and it just jumped into my glass. So that was nice.
Oh yeah, because that's the thing. I don't have a grant to your wishes. Yeah, so these are cask strength. We fill them all at 125 proof is when it goes into cask. And in our aging environment, we lose about 1 proof per year. So this is going to still be pretty high. We're going to be hovering around 119, maybe 118.
These are wildly different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This
This is
amazing.
the kind of the crazy part.
Yeah.
Because there's this like, the barley doesn't matter to a large extent. Like it doesn't have a flavor difference. And there's a fair amount of them that do taste really similar. But these ones are very, very distinctly different.
Do you think about processing the barleys through your production process differently when you go through that steeping process and you're getting some sense of flavor or what characteristics it has? You then think about like, I should ferment this for a shorter period of time, or I should distill this and make the cuts at a different period of time. I've always had this sense that like we lose the sense of barley because we're not trying to capture it through the process. How do you think about kind of the intricacies of the barley and the characteristics of it and your generalized production process that follows afterwards?
Yeah, the biggest there's some logistics of mashing, that if there's different protein levels that can affect how the mash goes. So inherently you have to make adjustments when you're doing it. That's more reactionary than it is, being like trying to capture some flavor. I would say on the production side, the most involved part would be, or what can be the most variable, is the cut from the hearts to the tails. So people know you have, the big cuts when you're making whiskey on the spirit still are the heads, the hearts, and the tails. The heads to hearts, if you're smelling it, it's really artificial. In the heads, like really concentrated, like an almost sour apple note, and then the malt notes and more pleasant fruit notes start to come through. And usually that's when you would transfer into the hearts cut. Into the tails has a little more leeway to it, kind of like you're getting, and the biggest example of this would be when you're doing peated malt, because a lot of the smoke character comes through at the end. So if you cut off the hearts to tails cut too early, you'll cut off a fair amount of that smoke note. So the same thing goes a little bit for these different varieties, where whoever is running the still is paying attention, is nosing it, is not just, looking at the proof and changing it. And so if they think it's still of quality and has like good notes coming off to it and hasn't transitioned into, a lot of times we'll call it like an old dish rag or something like that. It starts to smell a little bit moldy and not so great, and like that's kind of when it's dropping off. But that can be variable from barley variety to barley variety.
Are you running the still by hand effectively? Like, is it up to the stillman to determine when to make the cuts, or are there some?
Yeah. I haven't personally run a still in many years, but whoever is running a still, yes, it's just they control the steam level and they control the tanks that it goes to. If you've ever been to a Scottish distillery, they have what's called a spirit safe. We have a similar thing with knobs on it that dictate what tank it's going to. So there's two elements. They get it on the nose, and they also take the proof and they record all these things to see. So you could look back, we did this variety, we made the cuts here, and then do some comparisons that way.
Jason, I really like your notes. I added a little bit of water to them. Like, holy shit.
Pound cake made with Sprite. I like that. Yeah.
That's like a very Midwestern thing. I'm here for that.
Is it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. You can make cake with Coke and stuff. Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't know if anyone's ever had rooibos tea. I've sent this note to Anna quite a bit and requested that you smell some of the tea. And I think the bare barley is like a rooibos tea, or like a dry tobacco note is like the defining characteristic of it for me.
Did Anna bring back all the tea talk, or was this already in the area?
No, I know I am drinking a lot of tea these days. I know, but he's been drinking tea for a long time, so no, that's not me.
So different on the nose. They're so different on the palate. Oh my goodness! And yeah, you're right. There's definitely like a floral, rosehip kind of tea thing on the bare barley for sure. I need to go buy some rooibos.
Yeah. It's it's like an Appalachian tea, red bush tea from South Africa.
There's a spice tea shop that I like in Sacramento, so whenever I'm there, I come in and buy like a few ounces of this, a few ounces of that. So I usually have a running list of what I need to buy. This is excellent. I want to do more of this. Let's do more just nerd shit. I love this.
The comparison, this is the starkest here. So like it's like we've done so many varieties. Some of them have ended up in Calere releases, which were all of them that we released were single vintage, single variety of barleys.
What happened to Outpost range? Is it gone?
So right now we're doing like some. Yes, the Calere release will not be continued as is, called Calere. It'll be resurrected as a different release down the road. But as of right now, it's sort of like the Outpost range as it existed is really only Garryana that is guaranteed to continue. The other two, Calere and Solon, are going to be reworked a bit and will come out, further on up the road.
We did do a hand fill varieties a time or two ago that was basically, it was the same thing that was in Clare 1, but it was 9 years old. And it was beautiful. It was one of those things that was just simply lovely. Like on paper, I honestly was like, really? Come on. But then tried it. Oh my gosh. It was lovely. So I'm very excited to see how these things will develop over time, because there is nuance here, and not even this is nuance. This is hit you over the head differences. But they tend to be, when you have them on its own, if you don't get to have comparison, sometimes it can be a little harder to discern the differences.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty big risk for us to like try all these different varieties, because it's not guaranteed that they're going to be, markedly different. But to find that out, you have to, distill over 30 different varieties.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, how many different varieties do you have laying down that we could taste on the next tasting?
It's over 30. It might be closer to 35. I have to double check in the stocks, but it's a lot. And we also have ones that are kilned to different levels, like a Munich style of a certain variety. We also were getting into doing varieties from different areas. So we do have like a variety that was grown in Walla Walla and a variety that was grown in Oregon, Athena, Oregon, or something, for different varieties. So it's like, what's the role of location is an interesting question. We've worked with different maltsters. Largely worked with Skagit Valley malting, but we've worked with Link Malt and some other malt houses that do like traditional floor malting. So those will be interesting because that makes an impact too. They're not going to do the exact same thing at a different malt house.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get into the truly nerdy shit, like between, say, Skagit Valley malting and Link malts, and this is something Tyler's talked about before in terms of modification of the barley. So when starches basically are getting converted into sugars, right? Yeah. They do this a little differently, and so or different duration. The duration of the kiln was a little bit different, and so the color was different in the barley. And this is what comes through in the hot steep. Like you hot steep them, and you held them next to each other. Like these are clearly a different color. But according to them, it was the same spec. They spec'd it as a pale malt, which is in a range, of color. But those two things, even the modification of that grain, even though on paper it's the same, can be different between the malt houses. So that has a lot to do with even processing. So it's looking at, okay, you have what the barley is itself inherently different between each other, but then you have the process with the malt house, let alone what we're doing here. So that's just so many different flavor levers to pull on. If you're looking at it from a scientific standpoint, it can get a little tricky that way.
Yeah.
To look at side by side. But these, to answer the earlier questions that are, yes, these are the same, just different barleys between the two. But otherwise, yes.
Yeah.
Same. And to answer your other question, we did have a joke about that, about malting, getting a malting house. We were firmly told no. And no, yeah, definitely not. And they are going again.
Apparently Skagit Valley malt is firing up again. I've just heard this recently. So yeah, it's not a permanent closure. It was just, I think one of the investors sort of stepped up as more of a singular investor. And apparently they're going to start malting away again, which is good.
When you think about these two and you think about barley varieties, do you find that when you want to pull out the individual characteristics of barley, that there are specific yeast strains that do a better job of almost like preserving the individual characteristics as opposed to bringing them to generic end state?
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a wormhole. Like, you could change so many things. It's like
let's wormhole. Like, this group is ready to wormhole.
Realistically, if you were wanted to just isolate the barley flavor, you wouldn't use a saison brewer's yeast. You wouldn't even put it in cask. So then
you just do new make.
But then, you just do new make. We're really trying to isolate it. But the saison brewer's yeast is so much of the Westland house style. It's really the singular thread that ties a lot of the spirit together. So we just stuck with that instead of changing so many things. like the stock is pretty complicated as is. Like to throw in to be matching yeast types with barley types would be a really big projects.
And we've also been told to reminded that we are not a research facility. We are in fact a whiskey
You just
distillery.
ignore those people. Those are the accountants. We don't care about
weird.
them.
They hold the purse strings, so it's kind of weird. But
it is.
Yeah, from a whiskey geek perspective, like it would be super fun to do that. And I know there are, I think there are multiple distilleries around the world that are playing with different facets of this currently. I don't think one person is doing all of it because I'm not sure that they could effectively sell their product that way. But it is really interesting to consider, but I like that we can sort of collectively see what each individual distillery is doing and what they're exploring, because not one can do every single thing. That would be too much. Then you wouldn't actually have a house style. Then you are just a research facility. But we're trying to cultivate our own exploration of flavor, and don't worry, we're still playing with a lot of things. Don't worry.
Yeah.
When you pull these off the still and it's new make, are they as distinct as they are right now? And the second part of that question is, you've done such a good job of expressing the individuality of these two styles. What cask did you guys, and I apologize if you said it, what cask did you guys put this into? You did such a good job of preserving the separation. I imagine that was intentional, but like, I'd love to understand, like, what did this taste off the still? Was it this separated, and then what did it look like as you pulled it through production or maturation? Did it maintain that separation, or was it more separated before? Did it come together? Did it separate back more over time?
No, Bear was always a standout, and has been a standout like every time I've ever tasted it, from new make to through the ages. I was also like intrigued by it because it is this ancient variety, and that Bruichladdich had done it. These in particular were put into refill Cooper's Select, which is a new oak cask that we use that has a heavier toast, lighter char. And this cask had 5 malt in it before. So there's a tiny bit of carryover from that spirit. But they're both in these same casks. Yeah, and they fit really well. And they've matured along because like this, what I'm calling rooibos tea, or like this, dried tobacco note, was very singular. And it wasn't all that complex, but over time, which happens with, all spirit in these things, there's a cascade of ester reactions that are going on. So the fruit really starts to develop, and it sort of has more of a backing to it rather than being this one note. So to answer your question, these ones, Bear has always been a standout character. And the maturity at this point at 6 years old, I think is really nice. I think it has potential to go even longer for sure.
Anna, you said that if you guys did all these different experiments, you wouldn't have a house style. But we've tried a bunch of wildly different tonight, and you guys have always had this kind of nutty flavor in the background. And I'm wondering, you've talked about your yeast being pretty constant, and of course the stills are pretty constant. I'm wondering where that comes from.
Yeah, that's a good question. The nuttiness, it's like
it's not in, I wouldn't say it's in everything, but it's certainly in like Solum.
It's certainly in Solum. It shows up a little bit more, in stuff that is in refill casks. I don't get quite as much of the nuttiness in our new oak casks. So like, it's kind of an interesting point. You're saying something fundamental to the spirit, and if it's more spirit forward, it's getting more of that nuttiness. Yeah, it's not like, you can't always put your finger on precisely. Like, I would just be making it up if I was like, I know exactly what's doing this. But because like, you give the opportunity for flavor, and a lot of that is developed in fermentation. Esters get developed in the still and during aging. Like, these factors together to play off each other in a way that, sometimes like the taste of a nut is a very complex note, by itself. So it's like, I think there's a lot of factors that are combining to that. But it's interesting. So you're saying this is a through note through all the samples we've just done, all 6 of them?
Yeah, I got like, with your flagship, this kind of toasted sunflower or kind of sesame note. I know not a nut, but that kind of and then it turned into this waxy walnut, and now at the end I'm getting more of like a almond or peanut kind of a note. And so it's always been this general nut note that kind of goes through, but it's kind of developing in different ways.
I mean, we are really big into hiking and things here, so we're really about the trail mix.
Yeah.
The whole vibe. Yeah. That's a good. Do you have any Solum at home, by the way? I'm gonna ask about your personal whiskey cabinet.
No, I have had it, but I don't have it currently.
Because I would say that would be a really interesting one to try after all of that, because that one to me just it has like a screaming peanut note in it.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to your question. That's such a good question.
Yeah, because for me, the Westland note has always been chocolate-covered espresso beans. Like, it's the only way I can think of it. It's not straight coffee. It's this note of coffee-ish, but also dark chocolatey, but it's always shown up in some way. And like we've been talking about all the experimentation, and I think Anna, you and I have talked about once is I've got one bottle left of the Reverie, which was the most obscene. Like, it's the only bottle I've ever bought where it came with a flow chart to try to describe what they did with it.
Yeah. That one was complicated. They told me I could do whatever I wanted to, and then I don't know if they felt good about it after. It took a little bit of explanation for sure.
That is like my personal favorite, and I have long since finished my bottle, sadly. But it's okay. It's a good one.
Question,
Yeah,
which you may have cited. I don't know. I'm distracted. Is the ABV the same on the two boutiques?
Yeah, on these two boutique malts.
Which is what?
Yeah, so it's pretty high. It should be around 118 or 119.
Okay.
Yeah, we fill these casks at 125 proof, and that they lose about 1 proof per year. These are 6 years old.
I'm just because for the 67 for me was just incredibly complex, but I was getting like alcohol on the top of the other one.
Oh, okay, but not interesting. Yeah, so these are
and I've tried it. I've been pouring it, and I can't get past the alcohol. And I like super high proof, but I'm not getting complexity off of that like I'm getting off of the 6713, which is amazing, by the way.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's interesting. It's something we talk about quite a bit, like things that are the same proof. And then we talk about aromatic texture. So there'll be things.
We got a new puppy yesterday, so he's like, we can't. Yeah, we're like, I've been distracted this whole time. So yeah, it was, and I keep going back to it because I want to like it, and I don't dislike it, but I'm not. It's my. And we've been doing how long, Westland? Since like Garryana 1.
Nice.
Have you added some water to see what that does?
I will, but I'm a anti-water.
You're so reluctant.
I know I'm an anti-water person unless it's like a 40-year-old Scotch. I do not touch water, but I will try that. See if it up a little bit.
I mean, also our blender would be like, hey, try it with some water. So
try it with some water. Okay, I'll try it with some water. No,
I put a couple drops of water in each of mine just because I wouldn't even say it was necessarily tight, but I was like, oh, this feels a little hotter on my tongue that I really want right now. And I want to be able to open it up and just see what the flavors are in there.
Okay. They were just distinctly different. And I guess it was the 67 was like, the first, even on the nose, I was like, oh, this is it. This is the one. And so I was kind of surprised at how different those two came across on the palate.
Sure. Yeah, there's a question about entry proofs. So the biggest division of entry proofs is if it's a new oak cask, we fill it at 110, and if it's a used oak, we fill it at 125. So yeah, that's the biggest split. There's been some others in the past that you make a vatting of like 125 and 110, and then it goes back in cask. But those are the two dominant ones, driven by whether it's new oak or not.
So it tends to be like our 5 malt because that goes into new oak, and that gets more of the which compounds exactly?
It's sweet. Well, it's a little bit sweeter because like the wood sugars are soluble in water, so obviously lower proof, higher water content. It'll be a little bit sweeter. I think sometimes I think that's the biggest driving force between these things. But then, yeah, you'll get more of like the extractions of tannins at that higher proof. So if we're putting it new up, we don't necessarily want that huge hit of extraction right off the bat.
I put a little bit of water in the 6713, and it was okay. I added a lot more water, and it got a lot more interesting. And by the way, when I say a lot, I mean I'm still keeping it probably above, I don't know, 45% in all of this, but it just got a lot more interesting at a lower proof. Yeah, my experience with it. And I'm trying to do that now with the 7417 and see how that goes. And the 7417, it's a bit slap you in the face kind of thing. So you kind of have to put the water into to just, to drink it. So yeah.
Now, Shane, you bring up something that might be an interesting one is you guys have been doing the 125 for entry proof, but that was under the old malt regulations, and now that we've got American single malt, they remove the cap on the barreling. So you guys going to start looking at what that does?
Yeah, possibly. It's a good question. It's like something that's been on the top of my mind, to be honest.
We were just talking.
Yeah, it's playing around with different entry proofs. Because yeah, someone like Brook Lottie, our sister distillery, owned by the same company, so they'll fill at still strength. So they'll put it in cask at 140. So like that sort of proves out that they're making a pretty high quality whiskey. So I would be curious to mess around with it a bit.
How much are you guys in contact with Brook Lottie?
Not a ton. I like here and there. I mean, I see them every 2 years because we have a conference of people within the company that have a similar job to me. It's called the Creators Conference. So that's kind of the time to have contact and talk to them. But if we have other issues here and there, like a lot of it's like, mechanical things. They're talking about like bottling line efficiency, blah, blah, blah.
It's not the romantic
so
stuff you think.
Yeah, there's not a ton of romance in that end. But yeah, I have contact. It's not constantly, but I proof it. There's a question about proofing it down when tasting it. So I usually proof it down to either what the bottle strength will be if it's defined. So something like Flagship, it's defined at 46%. If it's open, I'll start it at cask strength and then start proofing it down. But I've tried the watering down a ton, and I've ended up landing on that it just doesn't make sense to me. I would like to taste it at like what level the consumer is going to taste it at and not have to make any alterations to it. And if they want to change something about it, they can add water, but it should be, these ones are unique because these are cask strength ones. Like I didn't mess around with these. Like there's the argument that they're too high to drink on their own, which we're kind of landing on. But no, I always try to taste it what it's going to be at the bottle at, instead of the lower proof. A lot of the lower proof design, I think, from the beginning was because people were tasting a lot of samples, and it was a way to keep your palate fresh. But if I am efficient about my tasting, I don't think I need to do that.
And it's a way to look for faults too.
Yeah, it's a way. Yeah, there's an argument for it. Yeah, you can find a lot of these little things, but it's like if I'm tasting it where it's going to be.
Why?
I want to have a similar experience to what it's going to be in bottle.
Yes, Everclear has no problems. Have you asked about October casks?
Yeah, this is the question. I was talking with someone the other day. I was like, the most interesting collaboration. It doesn't really benefit us that much, but I think they should put Octomore into like a second fill Garry Oak because of that band.
Oh, that'd be super fun.
The way that shook out, I think it would be really cool. But yeah, Octomore cask would be fun.
I think you guys should sell your Garryana oak casks for a really high dollar value to Octomore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll figure this out.
I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. I mean, like with Garryana 10 that you had tonight, like he said, we have the Mount Gay rum casks that are in there, and because they are also owned by our parent company, we were able to just do a barrel swap.
Yeah, we just traded 60 some odd casks straight across,
which is nice. I mean, I really wonder, would Garryana even come through on a tour? I don't know, man.
I think it would. I mean, so the bear, like.
Well, it would have the drying effect, right? And it would, but
give them a virgin oak cask. Give them a virgin Garryana cask, and I guarantee you that'll come through.
Yeah. Oh my God, it'd be so aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but aggressive. I think
it's just
you're
the
right,
angriest Scotch ever.
I mean, they've done an Octomore that was like 3 years old that they put in new French oak that had no char on it. That was pretty big. So like, yeah, they've done that.
Why not?
Sure. All right.
Yeah.
Wrapping up.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys have any more questions?
Well, one, while I still have everyone on the call, let me get a smile to their cameras because we forgot to take a picture.
I know. I was like, look at the right spot. So you tell us when. I always sit here for like 5 minutes smiling while you're waiting and getting set up. So please.
I just enjoy watching you guys sit there and smile. What are you talking about? I'm waiting for Adam. Okay, that's the only one who's missing. Adam, take your time and bring Ajax.
He's not going to listen.
There you go. See, he listens to me. All right, everyone, smile to the camera. Got it. It's not me, it's my computer slow, all right? It takes a second for the snipping tool to log in.
Sure.
I think it's not fair to ask everyone what their favorite was of the 6 because they're so different, but I will share with you the results in reverse order. What do you think was the favorite of the barleys?
Wine.
No.
The barleys. The barleys.
Yes.
Oh.
Anna, what do you think?
Jeannie.
Huh?
Which one did you guys like better?
Do we have the result?
He's waiting for. Are you waiting for us to answer?
Yeah. You know how this works. It's not your first tasting. You get to guess, and then we get to tell you you're wrong. It's great.
Yeah.
We love that. I mean, we like the bear.
Oh, we think we'll stand. I think people will look for the bear.
That is the correct answer.
All right. The answer is 71% voted for bear barley.
Oh, wow.
Right. See?
All right.
There.
Well done. You know your audience. All right. And now for the beer cask versus wine cask. What do you think was the winner?
That's so tough because people are like really.
I think beer cask is the winner.
I think wine cask was the winner.
Although, I've done a fair amount of these beer and wine cask and there's usually kind of an even split.
Yeah.
But if we have to, let's say 51% people chose beer.
I love how he hedges his bets here. This is great.
Are you ready for the answer?
So ready.
All right. You were right. That's the answer. It is.
Wow, that was
exactly
unbelievable. 50-50. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things about the beer and wine cast is that split is real. And so,
only half of the people are wrong. It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's really distinctive. I mean, honestly, anytime we do tastings, it is, and people have the response that everybody is having is like, "What? Really?" Like, nope, great. And then we have whiskey for both sides. It's wonderful.
Shane and Anna, I can only tell you that I have an excuse. I live in Willamette Valley, so I went wine.
That's allowed. We want you to enjoy that as well. There's not a wrong answer. Otherwise, why would you make it?
Exactly.
Jim, I have a question based off of that. Did most people go with their preference for beer and wine on their barrel aging?
Oh, that's a good question.
But
I don't know. I can't answer for the rest of them, but obviously I have a preference for wine over beer.
I have a preference for wine because I grew up in the Napa Valley, still live right next door, but I voted for beer because
Oh, wow.
it just had something brighter and a little bit different to it.
Oh, see, I'm the
Yeah.
opposite. I really enjoy a good beer, but the wine cask was delicious.
No, that's interesting.
I'm hoping.
I'm with Josh. It's too cold here for how bright the beer was. I love the beer cask was great, but it's been like in the low 40s here, and the wine was just like nice and warming and fruity, and like everything about the wine was what I needed tonight. So
So in the summer, you might have done the other way
But
around.
spot on.
maybe.
Honestly, that's kind of how I was feeling about it too. It's like, oh my God, it's just what mood am I in? Because they were both brilliant. I really liked them, and I'm not a beer
Yeah.
drinker, so I'm like Anna. I'm like, no, don't need a beer. Get it away from me.
They were good, but the last two were the best of all of them. There's
Yeah.
no doubt.
Those two were
the
crazy.
6, 7, 1, 3, and those were just killer.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
I vote for the beer because I usually just hate whiskey in beer barrel, and that was exceptionally good. There was some mustiness that feel very, very old, like something that I get from very old Scotch that you've been able to get here in the beer cask. It was fascinating.
Yeah, for me, the beer cask was transformative versus the wine cask was good, but it was malt and wine.
Oh, yeah, more integrated, I guess, on the beer ones.
Well, it was to the point where I couldn't tell them from apart. Yeah, it
Yeah.
just became one thing.
Yeah, cool. Nice.
I think I'm not a beer drinker. The only time I drink beer is if my husband has a gig at a brewery and I have to drink beer, but I like beer that's like so dark you can't see through it. And I like wine, but the beer hit me in the face that it was like beer. But after the second or third sip, I started to get the subtleties. But I kind of see where it's like I drink wine. I don't drink beer. So I think some of that, I think there's a bias to what you like. But I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's a bias. I think it's just it's not a bias as much as it's a preference. I mean, there's a certain essence between them that was different, and I didn't dislike either of them, but one I definitely like more. I think it's just and believe me, it's a little tiny difference because they were both very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, here, this gives everyone plenty to chat about. About this continuing back and forth, which is great. But if anyone has any questions about anything else, we gotta skedaddle. It's end of our day here in the distillery. But if you have any questions about this stuff, or you're interested in knowing where you can get any of these products, hit me up. I can help you out with that. But any last minute questions for Shane?
I just have one. Can I get a bottle of Garryana 2 from anyone, anywhere? Secondary care. I have to have one.
In San Francisco had some like in April.
Oh.
But I don't know if it's still there because I bought some there because I was collecting all the Garryanas as well, which I finally have. But you can call them and ask.
What's the name again? Can you put it in the chat?
Yeah, it's just Whiskey Shop. But
Whiskey what?
Can we do a Garryana tasting? Long ago,
The Whiskey Shop.
did a tasting of
Sam.
1 to 5.
Yeah.
The Whiskey Shop is by
Whiskey Shop. Thank you.
Whiskey Shop.
I will check. I will check them out. Yeah. No, we've done the Battle of Westland several times. We actually hosted it once at our house. So I've been invested in this and for a very long time. So this is wonderful. I was very excited for this.
Thank you.
Nice. Appreciate it.
By the way, there was someone said, wouldn't it be great if we could do a like the Red Roses does with their building up of the different barrels or something? What was it? Whoever posted that. That was a great idea. We should do that with Westland.
Oh, like a blending?
Yeah, the blending thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like a component sampling or something.
Yeah, the component sampling. That would be terrific.
We have done that, and it was also it's interesting.
Sorry.
It was interesting. See, we would love interesting.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks everyone for tasting Westland and hanging
Shane,
out.
Anna, thank you both so much. This was absolutely spectacular. Thank you for sharing the awesome whiskey with us and your experience and your knowledge. Hopefully we won't wait 2 years for the next one. I blame Anna for that.
What?
We got to do these more often. This was so much fun. Thank you so much. And yeah, as Anna has said, she is in the Facebook group and she's there. She can answer your questions. She's awesome. And maybe she can invite Mr. Showtime to join the group if he's on Facebook.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Really happy.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.